I was born in Korea, but raised in the United States as a second-generation pastor's kid, which means that I grew up watching my father in ministry. And one of the most impressionable things that I know, that I remember from my childhood, is when my father used to wake me up with his prayers and with his songs and with his reading of the Desire of Ages. It was one of the most inspiring moments that I remember from my childhood, because he would usually cry out to God in the early hours of the morning, and I would actually join him in some of these morning sessions, and the experience was phenomenal. And I realized the gravity of the responsibility that he held as the pastor of the local church, and truly did respect and admire him for the work that he was doing, for the call that he has received from God. The earliest memories that I have for my father has, started me on a trajectory of saying, God, here I am, and if you wanted to use me in any way, then I'm right here. And one of the books that my dad had recommended me in the formative years of my life was a book on Enoch, which I later said, if I have a son, I'm going to name him Enoch. And I do have a son now today named Enoch. But through that book, I realized that Enoch was on a lifelong journey with God, walking with God daily, carrying out his mission in life, and did want to be like Enoch when not when I grew up, but I just wanted to be like Enoch. And it was during those days where an international speaker through an expo that was happening in Korea, I think it was one of the Tuckers. I think his last name was Tucker. But through the series that he was doing, he mentioned that he had given his life to Christ and was baptized at the age of 7. And I was 7. I begged my dad, who was not ordained yet, that I wanted to be baptized. He ran it through the church board, and it carried. It got passed, and I was baptized when I was 7, and that was my first commitment to God, saying, I want my life to be yours. I want to be involved in any form of ministry that you would allow me to have in my life. Fast forward a few years, we moved to the States, and I have grown to witness a lot of discrepancies and hypocrisy within the church, and I was disillusioned. And it was in my formative years and my adolescence, upper teenage years, that really I was just disappointed with the church, and I did not want to be a part of the scene when I grew up. So it was during those days where I was invited to a Bible camp up in Camp Sable in Michigan, and one of the speakers there, Lawrence Byrne, he was the director for Adventist Frontier Missions, and he talked about a dream he had. He said the entire heavens were the heart of God. It was pumping out blood and raining it down, and a voice came saying, "This is my blood. It needs to go everywhere." I remember just sitting in the back. I wasn't really paying attention until he began to tell the story. As soon as I was telling that story, I got shivers all over me, goosebumps. I didn't know what to do with it, and I actually went outside. I went to a tree nearby, and I asked God, what does that mean? Why that reaction? Why that message? Why am I here? And I began to just inquire God of why he had led me to that particular point in my life. And it was the first impression. It was almost audible. I can't say that it was audible, but an impression that I received from God at that moment was, Justin, I want you to go back to the hypocrites in the church and tell them that I still love them. And that was the call to another ministry aspect, where he wanted me to be the grace agent and into a fallen church that I perceived was very hypocritical. And God said, I still want to work through those people, and I want to use you as a vehicle of grace to those leaders in the church. And that completely radically transformed my life and my ministry, because I began to go to the elders and deacons of the church, and I said, God still loves you. God still loves you. And that just changed them, and it changed me and set me on a trajectory into ministry. It was around that time that I became the class pastor, also this student association religious vice at the academy that I was attending. And then I was invited to be part of a group that started small group ministry for high school students. One thing led to another, and that began my ministry track. Eventually went back to Korea to do my undergrad in theology, and joined the 1000 missionary movement, spent a year in Philippines and in India, and did my mission work there. And it was during those times that the call was confirmed, where from the depths of my being, I recognized the call in my life and realized that I could not but preach and minister for the kingdom of God. Today, as it's a day where the confirmation of the call is coming from the institution of the church, I believe that God has led me a long journey to really shape me into the minister that He wanted me to become. And over the past few years, God has shown me what pastoral ministry really should look like. Because as a young, ambitious pastor coming in the beginning years of my ministry, it was all about ambition and church growth and winning agenda items, and it was those elements. But now I realize more than anything else, relationship is key to ministry. It's one soul at a time. It's one empathetic relationship at a time that results in life transformation. And today, as I stand here with the confirmation from the church body of the call that God has placed in my life, it's overwhelming to think about the sufficient grace of Jesus Christ that was at work in my life, and to see that all of the hard work that He has done in me is bearing fruit in a very public and official way.